Hello there. Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are right now. My name is Leo Bell. I am the Wellbeing Lead at Sun Uplift as part of the wider Southwest London St George's Trust. And today I'm going to be going through self-confidence and assertiveness. So first off, thank you for joining me today to go through this video. There'll be shorter versions of things that I'm going to be talking about also available on the website. We also have a number of other talks available on this YouTube page. But yeah, let's get into it, shall we? Okay, so normally this is run as a group workshop. You can go on our Eventbrite page and you can go through this workshop live with other people. So a lot of this stuff on this slide here is not that relevant because obviously this is a recorded video, but I will be sharing stuff, but I'm only going to share what I'm comfortable with. I'll fill in the gaps as it were. The one thing I would say is that because this is a recorded video, if you hear a bit you like, listen to it again, maybe have a pen and a paper at hand so that you can write down things and points you can make, even bookmark certain parts of this video. But also there's going to be the short snippet bits as well. Yes, but let's keep going. Okay, so the material today that we're going to be going through has been designed so that there is something for everyone. So focus on what's valuable for you, which is likely to be different for every person because we all have different reasons why our confidence might not be where it's at and why we don't talk as assertively as maybe we'd like. So the things that we're going to cover today, the first thing we're going to cover is what is self-confidence. The second thing we're going to cover is what are some of the barriers that affect our self-confidence. And the third thing we're going to cover is how our communication styles can help us to build confidence. You'll see as we go along how this all fits in together. So we don't have anyone here, it's just me, so we don't need to worry about introductions so much, but I'll fill in the gaps. So briefly say why I'm here today. I am here today because I am very passionate about mental health and I want these sort of information and resources to be available to everyone at any stage and any time they might need them. What is one situation where you feel like you lack confidence? I'm going to go with a really obvious one. Being at a bar when you're single is not a social situation that I'm particularly comfortable in. Approaching strangers at at any sort of situation like that, even if it's just to ask a simple question, I'm not a big fan of meeting strangers. So that is definitely a situation where I lack confidence. So have a little think about what self-confidence means to you specifically. What do the words when I say someone is self-confident, what do you think about it? And what we're going to do when we're thinking about this is we're going to go through a little short quiz. So I'm going to read out statements and you can call out to yourself or you can just think in your mind whether you agree or disagree. Okay. So first statement, and I'll give you 5 seconds to think about it. So confident people are bossy. Okay. So agree or disagree? Well, you can be confident without being bossy. Those two things are not interdependent. Confident people do not have to be the loudest in the room or feel like they have to assert their dominance onto others. I have a nice saying that my former mother-in-law used to say, empty vessels make the most noise. So just because you're loud doesn't mean you're confident. Next statement, confident people are rarely afraid. Again, this is kind of a bit of a myth in the sense that everybody gets scared, everybody gets anxious, everybody gets afraid from time to time. It's just maybe the confident person has the tools at hand, some of which we're going to discuss, or maybe has more experience in being in situations that make them uncomfortable and they've been able to overcome them. So although they feel the fear, they're able to overcome that fear. Next one. Confident people feel confident most of the time. Absolutely not. We will all experience periods in our lives when we are uncertain or self-critical, which can affect our confidence. Even the most confident people have situations that scare them. And this is very true. It's not a box that someone fits in for their life. It is something. It is, in some ways, it's a skill that we can work on, and life circumstances will impact you. If you are a very confident person and then you go through a tragedy in your life, that is going to knock your confidence very seriously, even though you might take a little bit of thinking to see the links between the two. But it is definitely the case that a confident person is not confident all of the time. And I've got one more statement here. Everyone is born confident. So the short answer is that nobody is born confident. We may wish that we were as confident as those who seem to radiate confidence, but remember they were not born that way. Confidence is a quality you develop as you go through life and as you put yourself in new situations or new environments. Confidence is acquired by confronting challenging situations, pushing their boundaries, and doing things they thought they'd never be able to do. So let's have a think about what the definition of self-confidence is. So the definition I have here is it's a feeling of trust in one's abilities, qualities, and judgment, showing that you value yourself and feel worthy despite your imperfections or what others may think of you. Self-confidence is important to your health and psychological well-being. If you have a healthy self-confidence, you'll feel positive feelings about yourself and about life in general. But if you have a low self-confidence, you will feel negative feelings about yourself and may be less able to tackle the challenges life has to offer. So why would this be the case? So think about if you have low self-confidence, you don't trust your abilities to do things. So therefore, when there is a challenge ahead of you, you do not rate yourself worthy or able to be able to conquer that challenge. Whereas someone who has maybe more self-confidence believes, no, although this is going to be challenging, I believe in myself and my abilities to be able to overcome this hurdle that's been thrown at me. It's also important to note, though, that self-confidence is different to self-esteem. Self-esteem is essentially how much we like and respect ourselves as a person and being self-accepting and loving to ourselves. So I'm going to just overarch with a theme here of self-acceptance, because I think that there is a bit of a blurred line for self-acceptance. I think that it's important in order to build your self-confidence, in order to have a certain level of self-acceptance, in that you have to be able to accept your imperfections as well as your qualities. So, and because, long story short, if everyone was perfect, the world would be very boring, and your imperfections help to make you who you are, and you need to be able to view that as yourself as a whole instead of narrowing in. So for example, I snore, and it really bugs me that I snore. But as long as the person I'm sleeping next to is able to get a good night's sleep, I now can kind of see the funny side of things, to the extent that I'll have sleep mic sometimes and listen to my and hear my snores, because occasionally I talk in my sleep as well. And although these are not great things, this is not a perfection, this is definitely an imperfection. I'm kind of viewing the prism of, well, it doesn't really define me that I have this negative this sort of negative aspect to myself. So it is important to understand that there is a slight blurred line between self-confidence and self-esteem, in the sense that you have to accept yourself for who you are, because once you accept who you are, then you can kind of start working on certain aspects of yourself. If there is a part of your personality that you really don't like, or is there something that you do that you really don't like, think about how great it will feel once you're able to overcome that. Our focus today is helping you to make steps to build your self-confidence. It isn't always easy, and this is a really important point. It may not come naturally to you to feel confident in your spouse, to feel confident in yourself, especially if you've struggled with this sort of thing in the past, especially if your inner voice is very self-critical, or if you have experienced bullying or others putting you down in the past, or any sort of trauma from your young years is going to have a real impact on your self-confidence. So it's very important to notice these things. And I also will just note that being aware of what your inner voice is saying is also, it's paramount to being able to build your self-confidence. So what type of things get in the way or compromise our confidence? So normally so in the online workshops, I would ask the group if they want to share any factors that have affected their confidence. But I have a list here that I'm going to go through, and I want you to think about whether any of these things ring true to you. I mean, a couple of them definitely ring true to me. So experiences or situations that can affect or compromise our confidence. Okay. So first on my list, and then I'm just going to go through them all here, bullying or put down from others. Employment or career. This is especially employment if your employment or career you have very little control over what it is you do in your day-to-day life at work. Next here, I have staying in your comfort zone, so avoiding risks. Fear of failure. This next one is one I'm definitely guilty of. Dismissing compliments. Next here, I have covering our mistakes rather than accepting them and understanding we all make them and can learn from them. So there are no losses, only lessons. And finally, I have past relationships and current relationships. So this could be your partner, this could be family history, this could be school school friendship groups that you might have been part of, etc. So that's the end of the statements, but it is important to remember that negative beliefs about ourselves are not facts. So the key words here are belief and fact. You can believe that you are a piece of crap and that you'll never amount to anything, but that's not a fact. That is something that has been held in your mind, and it's something that becomes quite entrenched if you believe something about yourself. If you believe something for long enough, then it becomes fact in your mind, doesn't it? But these negative beliefs are based on past experiences, not so they're based on things that have happened in your past. So say bullying, for example, but they are just ideas or hunches picked up when you were younger. I mean, it says here childhood and adolescence, but it's something, it doesn't matter. It can happen when you're, I don't care if you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. These things, if you have these negative things that happen to you, it can become a negative thinking pattern. And after a period of time, it can become almost set in stone. At least it can feel that way. And these beliefs sort of impact on our appearance, so our personality, skills, abilities, and even things about like the way we speak. So for example, if you think that you are rubbish, for lack of a better word, then you might not take care of your appearance as much, because who cares anyway? Like I'm not, I don't matter, kind of thing. It can also be in terms of body language. So you have your head down and your shoulders high, and your posture will be rounded, with the reason being that I'm trying to hide. I don't see me. I'm not a threat to you, almost. Personality, it could come out in the forms of being much more quieter, being much shyer than you really are. I mean, we all have levels of introversion and extroversion that we feel most comfortable with. Maybe you don't like big social groups, so maybe you should be meeting with friends one-to-one, as it were, and then you'll get more from that. And it's important to note these things. There's a very good book called Quiet out there, which talks about the power of introversion, how it's not actually an issue. It's a positive if you respect it, as it were. But if your self-confidence is very low, then you will feel shy, because you will feel that if you show yourself to other people, they might not like what they see, because you don't like what you see when you see yourself. Skills and abilities. So this is going to be if you have a low self-confidence and you're not willing to try new things because you always think you're going to fail, you're not going to develop these skills and abilities and not going to progress in the way that you like. And then all of this stuff starts to, it's all a self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm not gonna talk to anyone at the party because they're all gonna not like me. You go to a party and not talk to anyone. You go home and you think to yourself, "Oh, I'm so rubbish. Honestly, I didn't talk to anyone. They must have think I was really weird," kind of thing. And finally, I've got, as I mentioned, even about things like the way we speak. So you might talk quietly. You might, so as I was saying with the posture, you rounded, you're small, I'm not a threat. The same for sort of thing can happen with our voice. I am not a threat. I talk quietly. I don't need to be heard. I don't need to be seen, because I don't want you to see what I see, which is what my self-opinion of myself, which is not the opinion other people have of you. So the question moving forward is, how can we increase our self-confidence? It can be helpful to understand what some of the factors that are acting as a barrier for you right now. So we need to do this by asking ourselves a few questions. So have you had any recent knocks to your confidence? So think about life events, or it can be small things. So there is new studies coming out in what they call sort of mini traumas. So it could be something that doesn't. So when we think trauma, we think of war, we think of natural disasters, we think of major life events. But trauma can be in smaller packages as well. So if a teacher embarrassed you in front of a class, for example, said that you gave a really stupid answer, or someone or a student said something very rude to you in front of a group of people, or a friendship circle, we all have these moments when we're in the shower and we think and we go, oh God, that was horrendous. These sort of things can stay in our mind, and they can burrow in deep, and then they can really they can become anchors to these thought patterns. So, but have you had any recent knocks to your confidence, or what do you think of that has knocked your confidence in the past? What have you been avoiding doing recently due to a lack of confidence? So think about it in the sense of what I was saying earlier, that if you don't believe that you can do something, then you won't try, and then that becomes self-fulfilling prophecy. Oh, I didn't even try. I'm a failure. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. What challenges are you currently facing? So if you have a lot on your plate right now, as I like to say, you're carrying a very heavy bag, you can feel very tired, and it can really affect your self-confidence, because you just getting to the end of the day with this heavy bag feels like that's all you can manage. And then the final two is, what situations do you feel most confident in? And what situations do you feel least confident in? So reading a bit more from my notes here, it's common to experience some negative emotions when asking yourself these questions. Our emotions, even the unpleasant ones, help us to understand, process, and communicate important information about the world around us. We cannot we cannot change or stop the things that have affected our confidence in the past, but we can control how much impact it has on us now. Turning into what is getting in the way of our confidence can really help us identify areas that we fear and avoid, and areas that we maybe don't realize are strengths. So, for example, if you went through a lot of trauma in your childhood, that can affect your self-confidence massively. But what I'd like to say to you is that you're still here. You made it. You should give yourself a lot of credit. You must be a real resilient person. This is something that we don't realize. We think that because the world has been horrible to us, that we're rubbish. Just because negative things have happened in your life doesn't make you negative. It just means that you have had to go through stuff, and you should give yourself a big pat on the back for for making it through what it is that you've made through. Life is hard. A great way to increase your confidence is by being aware of the strengths or the areas that you excel in. And this can sometimes be quite hard to identify. Those who judge themselves harshly tend to focus on their weaknesses and not mindful of their strengths. It's time to take credit for the things you are good at. We all have this negative bias. It's a famous psychological quirk of us, in which if I tell you out of 10 things you did 8 things right and you did 2 things wrong, you automatically will focus on the 2 things you do wrong. It's a very natural thing that we all do. But it's very important that we don't forget the 8 things that we did right. Yeah, have a look at the things that you did wrong, but also read the 8 things that you did right. If you are finding it difficult to identify your strengths, and by listening to this video, I'm sure that many of you are, read these statements and ask if it applies to a quality, activity, or skill you may possess. If one or the two of the criteria below apply, you will know if something is a personal strength or talent. You feel enthusiasm, excitement, or joy while displaying or using this strength. Other people recognize this strength or talent in you. You feel invigorated rather than tired after using it. You create or focus personal pursuits around the strength. Find situations where you can use your strengths, passions, and values. This could be volunteering, this could be exhibiting your art locally, this could be mentoring a young person, this could be fundraising. You could do, I mean, you could, if if you're an insomniac, you could fundraise by doing a 24-hour movie-thon. I mean, if you are trying to get fit, you could start running and then start promoting fundraising through that. So doing 60 kilometers in a month, for example, that they do in November. Even if you don't go out a lot, sober October, and then try and raise money that way. Any of these sort of things where it's like we all have skills, even if we're not aware of it. We're all good at things, even if we're not aware of it. You just have to think about which of the things that you do gives you any of those points, the feeling of enthusiasm, the other people recognizing it, feeling invigorated, or you create time in order to do it. All of these things can help you get a great sense of satisfaction as you put your strengths into practice. We can increase our confidence by using these situations to build our resilience. Resilience is the capacity to face, overcome, and even be strengthened by difficult experiences. It is about coping, recovering, and finding a way to grow and develop positively despite the problems we encounter. One thing you can hold on to from these challenging experiences is the fact that it can potentially teach you something new or make you stronger in the long term. This can be a great way to rebuild confidence. I want you to have a think now about when you've gone through a challenge in the past. What was the thing or things that kept you going? Was it your sense of humor? Was it your refusal to give up? Was it your support network? I'm just going to stay on that moment. Your support network. That shows, if you have any support network, that shows you that you should have self-confidence in yourself, even if you don't believe it. Was it your belief that things would work out? Was it your ability to work hard? Or maybe it was your problem-solving skills. Use this experience as an opportunity to build your resilience by strengthening your connections and relationships, being kind to yourself, finding meaning and purpose in life, and making your physical and mental health a priority, or mental well-being a priority. This way, when another challenge comes your way, as it inevitably will, like I said, life is hard, you can tackle it head on and you will confidently be able to do it. And every time, just like I was saying, the self-fulfilling prophecy with the I go to a party, I don't talk to anyone, I feel rubbish afterwards. When you have the next challenge, I'm going to talk to one person at the next party. You go, you talk to one person, and that's it for the whole evening. I did it. Next time, I'm going to talk to two people. Do you see what I mean? It's all about setting yourself small goals, achieving them, showing them you can do it, and then being able to move forward. I say when someone asks me how do I get fit, I tell them walk for 10 minutes and do 10 press ups every single day. Don't care when you do them. You don't have to do all 10 in a row. Just do it every day. And what happens is naturally people go, after they've done it for a week, they go, I reckon I could walk a little bit more than 20 minutes. I'm going to walk for 30 minutes next time. I'm going to do more than 10 press ups in a day. I'm going to do 15. And then it's just slowly these people, you can just get a slow development, just doing the consistently. Your brain, it's a predictive machine. If you say that you're going to do something and then you do it, your brain learns, oh, I do the things that I say that I'm gonna do, kind of thing, and it becomes self-fulfilling prophecy, but in the right way. There's an expression in terms of using the experiences as well. There's an expression that I've heard an individual called David Goggins use. Bear in mind he does swear a lot, so if you do check him out, then be mindful of that. But he talks about using the cookie jar. So when he is in a situation, he's an ultra marathon runner. When he's in a situation that is particularly taxing, what he does is he goes in his cookie jar. He remembers past events that were really tough, and he remembers how he made it through, how he survived those events, how he made it through to the end, and he uses that as motivation for his current challenges. Another way we can increase confidence is by minimizing the things that actually help to break our confidence. There may be factors we are unaware of that do more harm than help, and social media can be one of them. So, big headline here. If it was up to me, it would fill up the whole screen. Limit your media usage. There's an expression I'm going to use straight before I start talking about this. Comparison is the thief of joy. For many, social media is a great way to keep up to date with many things in a very short space of time. We can find new tips and tricks that can make our life easier. However, with the influx of people wanting to show their best selves, it can be overwhelming and can make you feel more stressed, anxious, and can make you doubt yourself. In fact, I've seen studies from the last 12 months or so that show they did, it was a happiness study. And what they did is they had over 100,000 participants, and what they did was they texted them at random points over a period of time. I think it was a few months, and they just said, "What are you doing right now, and how happy are you on a scale of 1 to 10?" And what they found is that the thing that made people feel the crappiest on average was being on social media. So it's important to bear that in mind. And the thing that made people most happy was it was either doing things in nature or it was doing things with people that they loved. It didn't matter what they were doing though. It is important to keep balance between staying informed whilst managing your exposure to media. If you do find yourself being overwhelmed by social media, it is time to start limiting and be selective about what you are doing and reading and listening to. It's important. I mean, a good way to do this because mobile phones are so addictive and social media is so accessible, you can get on it like that. My advice, honestly, is to put your phone out of reach. You don't have to put it in another room or anything crazy like that. I would honestly say if you put it in a drawer that is more than an arm's reach away from you, that will work, and that will really help. Be mindful that things people post may not be trustworthy, as a lot of what appears on social media can be rooted in opinion rather than fact. Um, I'm going to give an example of this. I have a friend who takes hundreds of photos when they're on holiday, and they will, for weeks after they get back, keep posting photos of the holiday. So it looks like they've been on holiday for months, when in reality they were there for 5 nights, not 5 months. And it was only when I talked to them about it, I was like, "You go on a lot of holidays?" They go, "Oh no, I don't. I went that was months ago. I'm just still posting about it." So and that's not the only example that I have off the top of my head. It's important also here to note that if you are friends with people who are overly negative or tend to share information which makes you feel less confident, it might be worth muting their posts or messages for a few days and just see whether it works for you. As I said, I'm the well-being lead here. I constantly talk about we need to think about what fits in well with your being and then do that, and think about things that fit in ill with your being and don't do that. Almost think of it like a meter that you're topping up, like fuel, although less expensive. Um, Oh, it says here also keeping your phone out of the bedroom or out of reach, and trying to schedule some screen-free time every day are good ways of protecting yourself. My way I do this is I don't go on my phone when I'm at work. I have WhatsApp I open every so often on my desktop occasionally, but phone goes away. And I also like to set myself, if you have, I'm not sure if they have it on Androids, but I know on Apple iPhones they have, you can get a report every week of your screen usage. Set a goal and try to beat it. So if you have been on your phone 5 hours on average this week, aim for 4.5 next week, and then 4 the next week, and then 3.5, and just see if you can knock it down. This is the same thing I do with when I have clients who want to work on their diet. I say, let's count how many grams of sugar you're having today, each day, and then we're going to minus 10% from it each week. So another way that we can tackle increasing confidence is by challenging our negative self-talk. And this is something that's really common. Um, we have a great, I mean, negative self-talk is very common. We have a great way of setting impossible standards for ourselves and then criticizing, ridiculing, putting ourselves down, or blaming ourselves when we fail to reach those standards. We sometimes can treat ourselves so harshly. I saw a study recently that said 80% of our inner self-talk is generally negative, and 95% of our self-talk is repeated, something that we've already thought. So that means that about 75% of all thoughts are repeated negative thoughts. So it's important for us to be aware of these things. Often, and just be aware that it doesn't have power. That's the other thing. Often this negative voice is heightened by automatic thoughts. So these are the repeated ones, assumptions and core beliefs that we have about ourselves, others, and the world around us. Like I said, your brain is a predictive machine. These thoughts are definitive and lack perspective. When situations go wrong, rather than seeing it as an unfortunate event, the negative voice assigns personal blame. So have a think about some of these statements and see what you think about them. I can't do anything right. What is the matter with me? Why do I always get things wrong? Why can't I handle everything that the world throws at me? I am always messing up and ruining things. This next one isn't a statement, so I'm back to the notes. Understanding your negative self-talk is the first step towards distancing yourself from constant self-judgment. This way of thinking is problematic as it is so absolute in nature. It's allowing us to miss out on opportunities to grow and learn. And this all leads to a lack of self-confidence, self-esteem, and mood difficulties. We need to investigate our negative thoughts and challenge them when we notice them. In order to challenge them, we need to build up beliefs that are balanced and flexible. So now I'm going to be talking about the slide. When you look into your negative self-talk, so actually before I do this, I'm just going to give a way that you can view your negative self-talk. So there's a concept called morning pages by someone called Julia Samuel. And it is initially, the concept behind it, it's a creativity tool. That's how it was initially sort of founded. The idea is that you have 1, 2, 3 pieces of paper and a pen, and all you do is you write out whatever's in your head. So my name is Leo Bell. I had a good night's sleep. I'm looking forward to work today. I have to do these videos, blah, 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 blah. And you just, whatever is in your head, it's not today, it's not like a journal. Like, it's not, today I did this, and then I did this, and I felt this. It's literally whatever is going on in your head at that moment. And it could be crazy. And there could be nothing going on. And when there's nothing going on in your head, you write down, I have nothing to say. I have nothing to say. I have nothing to say. And the initial concept behind it was that this frees up space in your mind so that you can make more creative connections between things. But I found personally in my experience that it's very, very helpful to identify your negative self-talk, because when you write just whatever's in your head, you will start to notice a pattern. You will start to notice what that inner voice sort of sounds like. It could be, I'm not looking forward to work. I feel like I'm crap. I didn't get enough good sleep last night. This is what always happens. I shouldn't have stayed up watching Netflix. Why do I do this to myself? I hate myself. I'm useless. I'm rubbish. I can't believe I did this again. And it just keeps going, and it can be, I hate myself. I hate myself. I hate myself. I hate myself. And then you can see this negative self-talk. So let's use that example. So let's use the example of, I stayed up too late last night watching Netflix. I hate myself. I always do this to myself. I'm all tired today. I feel like crap. Okay, so we're going to take that and we're going to go through this slide. So I'm going to read through it first, and then we're going to use the example. So number 1, identify the situation. What is causing you to negatively self-talk? Number 2, what negative things do you say to yourself? So example here is difficulty finding a job. I'm not good at anything I do. We're going to do my example though in a minute. Third thing, challenge it. What is a more positive way of talking to yourself about this? So in the example in the notes, it's not easy to find a job. Just because I haven't found one, it doesn't mean that I'm useless. So using the example that I gave though, identify the situation. What is causing you to negatively self-talk? I'm tired because I stayed up too late watching Netflix. What negative things did you say to yourself? I'm stupid. I shouldn't have stayed up so late last night. I always do this to myself. I hate myself. I hate being tired. I deserve to suffer. Challenge it. What is a more positive way of talking to yourself about this? Hey, I am tired today, but I've had my coffee. It's already 12 o'clock. I only have to get through the next 5 hours and I'm going to be okay. I'm sure I'm going to be able to get quite a lot of work done still. I'm still going to be able to stay on top of it. Hey, that's quite cool that I can get my work done even though I'm tired. I must be quite good at what I do. And to be honest, I kind of enjoyed what I was watching on Netflix. I might even recommend it to one of my friends, but I'm gonna have an early night tonight, or I'm gonna watch the sleep video that Leo made on YouTube, and then I'm gonna figure out a better way to establish a more healthy sleep pattern. And then because I'm feeling tired today, maybe I'll feel less tired tomorrow. So you can see how I'm trying to frame this. So remember, just because you have said it, it does not mean you won't believe it yet. Challenging negative thoughts takes time and persistence. The fact of the matter is that the longer these negative self beliefs have existed, the harder they're going to be to shift. Some helpful tips. It is very easy to dismiss the facts that do not fit how we see. I'm going to read that again. It is very easy to dismiss the facts that do not fit how we see ourselves. If it helps, speak to a close friend or family member who can help. Negative beliefs are not facts. So what I say in these situations is, what would your best friend say to you? So if you're saying, I hate myself because I'm tired because I stayed up watching Netflix, I feel like if my best friend said that to me, the first question would be, well, you get an early night tonight, and what did you watch? It wasn't any good. Next thing, I've sort of already touched upon, keep a journal or a notebook, or do the morning pages that I was suggesting, and see the evidence that of the negative view of yourself, and then challenge it, no matter how small it seems. And finally here, praise yourself when you are able to successfully challenge a thought. That's an important one, because we want to start tying a positive anchor to removing these negative thoughts. All of this brings me quite nicely onto self-compassion. Self-compassion is about how you treat yourself when things are not going well. Disappointment, stress, and failure are a part of life. No one can avoid these things completely. What you can control is how you respond and treat yourself when these unpleasant circumstances arise. Showing self-kindness. Being kind and understanding with yourself as you would a friend. Kind of mentioned this. This means acting the same way to yourself when you're having a difficult time, fail, or notice something you don't like about yourself. Instead of just ignoring your pain, you ask yourself, how can I comfort and care for myself in this moment like you would for a friend? Understanding common humanity. We are not alone in our mistakes or our weaknesses. It is a normal part of everyone's life. Speaking harshly or being overly critical does not motivate you to do better. Perfection is boring. Being mindful of your emotions and feelings without over-identifying with them. Yes, I'm upset right now. I need some time out, rather than thinking of more things that add fuel to the fire. It helps us to recognize when things are getting too much. Overall understanding, we don't get things right on the first try, and that's okay. Self-compassion is not about denying your responsibility in problems or excusing yourself from mistakes. The focus is on removing our negative self-judgments and leaning more towards forgiveness and acceptance. So we'll talk quickly about compassionate self-talk. Speaking compassionately to yourself is actively trying to create a less judgmental inner conversation, one that still describes the same reality. Important point there. One that still describes the same reality, but in a much more compassionate way. So, for example, if you feel rejected in a relationship, instead of saying to yourself, I'm unlovable, it is more compassionate to say, it did not work out, but I'm glad I tried. Practicing gratitude. This is something that I tell a number of my clients to do because it is so simple and it has quite a lot of substance in the research. Just writing down 3 things can work. So I'm going to read the notes here, but I'll give you a personal example that I could do. Take a moment every evening to write down something good that you did or something good that happened during the day that you were grateful for. It could be very simple, a lovely chat with a neighbor or a tasty meal. You can use your daily journal to note down the things you are grateful for, or you can keep a separate gratitude journal. Research shows that actively focusing on the positive elements of your life can help to improve your overall well-being and resistance. So I'm going to give you an example for myself. I'll do yesterday. So 3 things that I was grateful for. I was grateful that I was able to do jiu-jitsu after coming back from an injury, so I was very grateful about that yesterday. I was very grateful for my morning coffee because I was rather tired when I got into the office yesterday. And I was grateful for one of my clients who was a bit shaken up in the day, and it kind of the adrenaline spike from working with them, although it was a little bit stressful at the time, it meant that I was able to sort of ride that wave of momentum and get a lot of done work in the afternoon. So I mean, that's almost a negative being swinged into a positive, but that's an example that I could give. Okay, so what is assertiveness? It is a way of thinking and behaving that allows a person to stand up for his or her rights while respecting the rights of others. One way we can improve our self-confidence is through communication. Communication is key to enable us to express our confidence and assertiveness. It's you deserve to be heard. And you can see, and this is something that we're going to be touching upon in a couple more slides as well, there's this little Venn diagram here of the your needs and the others needs. So you don't want to trample all over someone and only think about your needs because that's aggressive. You don't want to be too passive and just let yourself be trampled all over and be passive. You want to find that middle ground where you are basically considering both your needs and others needs. And just like I was saying, it's actually on this slide. So communication can be seen as on a scale. On one end, we have passive communication. So like I said, it's allowing yourself to be run over almost. So I don't mind, that's fine, yes, all right. Submissive, puts self down, praises others instead. And it's fine to praise others, but it's not fine to praise others if you don't give yourself any credit at all if you deserve it. So passive communication. Using this style conveys having no opinion other than the one of the other person and believing that other people are always more important, so it doesn't matter what you think anyway. On the other end of the scale, as you can imagine, we've got aggressive communication. So harsh, I'm always right, know it all. This is what we're doing and I don't care what you think kind of communication. And this kind of aggressive communication conveys that they are entitled to have things done their way, the way they want it to be done, because they are right, and others needs are less important. And like that Venn diagram, we're trying to find the middle ground, which is so actions and expressions fit in with the word spoken, firm but polite. So that's a good idea. How about if we did this too? Or I really can see that, but I'd also really like this and those. So you're taking both the other person into consideration, but also yourself. Being assertive means that actions, I've already said this, but being assertive means that action and expressions fit with words spoken. It is about being firm but polite and having a clear message, being respectful of yourself and others. A person with assertive communication style believes or acts as if all individuals involved are equal, each deserving of respect, and no one is more entitled to have the other than the other. And no one is more entitled than the other to have things done their own way. So now I ask you, are you aware of your most dominant communication style? Have a think not just in the way you talk, but also your body language and how you present yourself. Maybe even think of an example. We want you to think about how each style might behave in terms of body language. So communication is also found, this is why I mentioned it, communication is also found in our body language. In fact, they estimate between 65 and 70% of all language is just pure body language, is non-verbal. How do you think that a passive or an aggressive person communicates with their posture? So their eyes, their hands, maybe just their general sort of how they hold themselves, how wide they stand. So to give you some examples, passive, eyes, avoids eye contact, looks down. Posture, makes their body smaller, hunch shoulders. You might be getting some flashbacks to earlier in this talk. Hands, clammy or fidgety. It's jumped forward a little bit, but I know what it says. So before we talk about this slide, I'll just finish the last slide. So passive, it's very much I'm small, I am no threat, do not see me. Aggressive, it's much more I am here, you're doing what I want. It's not so much it's aggressive, it's being in your personal space, it's taking up more room than necessary. It's my rights are more important than your rights. It's not just looking in your eyes, but it's staring into your eyes in a way that makes you uncomfortable, sort of trying to psych you out, all of these things. But we don't want that. We want to focus on assertive language. We want to focus on building our assertiveness, which is an important factor in building our self-confidence. We can do this by using assertive language, not passive language, not aggressive language. It means saying what you mean, meaning what you say, but not saying it in a mean way. Practicing assertiveness is not telling people off or putting people in their place. It's creating a sense that you have rights and needs as an individual, and it also allows others to understand and respect your personal boundaries. Sometimes when we are upset or pushed to our limit, we may say these statements: "You are wrong, you don't care, you hurt me." You may have been a passive communicator, but a situation has pushed you to use more aggressive language to assert your boundaries or feelings, so like the statements I just said. This can lead to more arguments or the individual shutting off communication completely. Assertive languages uses I statements to focus the conversation on you and your needs and not blaming the other person. So instead of saying you are wrong, instead we are saying I don't agree because X, Y, and Z. It takes time and it takes practice to build up our assertive language, but it is something that you can start to implement right now. So some key points for assertive language. So say no when you want to mean it. The word no is quite powerful, so use it. You can tone it down by offering alternatives. So I like to say, an expression I like to use is no is a complete sentence. If someone is saying to you, hey, can I help you carry your groceries into your house, and you don't feel comfortable with that, you can just say no. And you don't need to say anything more. It can be quite, if you want to tone it down, you can offer an alternative. So say, no, my partner's going to come out and get it for me, even if they're not. But it is important to do that sort of thing. No when you mean it, and it's a complete sentence. You want to express understanding of the other person's perspective, and if you don't understand, ask. This doesn't mean you have to agree with them. Deliver your message to the person that matters, not to everyone else but the person. And finally, you want to avoid exaggeration. So exaggerations like these can be things that are too strong, so you're rubbish, but they could also be things that are very definitive, so you always and you never, you constantly do this kind of stuff. Like all of those things are quite triggering, and they're very often not true. The example that I like to try and give when I talk about assertive language is if your partner doesn't wash the dishes. Okay, so let's say you cook and it's your partner's job to clean dishes after you've eaten, and they don't do it. Sometimes what can happen with and I see this in relationships all the time, well, not this precise example, these kind of examples, is what happens is the passive communicator doesn't feel comfortable bringing up that the individual, that their partner hasn't washed the dishes. And what happens is this resentment that they haven't done their job builds over time. So after 3 days of your partner not doing the dishes, despite the fact you cooked and that we've both agreed that they do the dishes, they wash up, on the 4th day, you notice that they still haven't done it yet, and that evening you explode and you say, you're useless, you never listen to what I say, you never do what I say, you never do your role, you can't respect me, all these kind of things. And the person who's being yelled at wasn't aware that they were doing, like, obviously they knew they had to do the dishes and whatnot, and that was their role, but they didn't realize it was upsetting you so much because you would have already said something in their mind. So being assertive with the language is, after they've not done it for maybe the 2nd day, you mention to them, hey, would it be right if you did the dishes, please? And that's maybe all you need to say that day. And you're like, okay, cool. And they say, yeah, I'll do it. And then the next day they don't do it again, and you go, hey man, come on, please do the dishes. I did ask you yesterday. And they go, oh, I'm so sorry, I completely forgot. And maybe they do it then. But then if they don't do it that night again, and then you go to the next night and they're still languishing around, you say, hey, so you're going to make your point, you're going to express your understanding, you're going to tell them, and you're going to avoid exaggeration. So, hey, oh, man, I mean, I know I've asked you the last 2 nights, please could you do the dishes? I mean, it's not just about the dishes, it's also because when you don't do these things, just like I'm cooking and you're not washing up the dishes afterwards, I feel like you're not listening to me, and that does affect, like, you not listening to me, it doesn't make me feel very valued, and it doesn't make me feel very respected, and then that impacts on how I feel, and I really don't want to feel that way. And I know it's not like a massive deal, but I really would appreciate if you were able to do this. I know that you've been busy, and I know that like you've had a hectic week at work and you're probably tired, but I mean, it won't take that long. And just approaching it in that softer manner, not using definitive terms, expressing understanding of the other person, telling them directly, it can really have a big impact on both your communication style with that person, but then moving forward, because then they go, I didn't realize that me not doing it made you feel this way. I'm gonna get right on it, kind of thing. And then that positive interaction can then impact on your other interactions moving forward. Identifying and naming feelings. In order to be assertive, we have to understand what our feelings and needs are in order to be able to protect them. We all innately understand what our physical needs are. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs: food, water, shelter, clothing, safety. But we often forget about our emotional and psychological needs. So feeling understood, feeling trusted, feeling respected by others. If our needs are not constantly being met, this can have a knock-on effect on on both your physical and your mental health. It can have a knock-on effect on your relationships, your work, your family life, etc. All of these things are in some way interlinked. Like I was saying with the assertive communication with your partner, it could then impact at work, for example. For others to understand what your needs are, you have to be aware of what your needs are. So that means you recognize feelings when your needs are not being met. That means recognizing your feelings when your needs are being met. So feeling happy, peaceful, grateful, content, and recognizing your feelings when your needs are not being met. So lots of different emotions can arise. You can feel resentful. You may find yourself minimizing your own needs. You may feel confused, embarrassed, shameful, disconnected. Needs not being met in our interpersonal relationships is a really crucial one to identify. Unequal relationship with our partner, for example, like I was given with the dishes one. Family members of high expectations is one I see commonly. Maybe it's our work life. We feel that we are not being respected. Maybe we're experiencing bullying, or our boundaries are being crossed. You're being asked to do a massive project at 5 to 5 for the next morning, 9 a.m. You may feel like you aren't always aware of what your needs are. And when this happens, perform an emotion needs checklist to define what your needs are. So these are the words in yellow. So what are my needs? I'm going to just read them out. The need to be honest, the need to feel peace, the need to have meaning in your life, the need to connect with others, the needing to feel that you have your own autonomy, so that you have your own some level of control over your life, and a certain level of playfulness. Do you get to play at all? This is not obviously like, it could be whatever it is. It could be a sport, it could be a game, it could be a hobby, it could be whatever it is. When we understand our needs, it helps us to communicate to others when they are not being met. This is why it's important to identify and name your feelings, so you can see what areas in your life you need to be more assertive in and set personal boundaries. So a more in-depth explanation on setting boundaries and assertive communication. So setting boundaries, as we discussed, means identifying and labeling your emotions and needs, and then expressing them in an assertive manner. And the 4 basic steps of assertiveness. So I'm gonna go for each of these points, and I want you to think about the example that I gave with the washing dishes, and maybe even use an example in your own personal life, and think about how you could use these steps to communicate assertively, so that you can get what you want, or you can set that boundary. So observation: describe the upsetting behavior without any evaluation, criticism, or generalization. Just present it as non-judgmental, neutral observation without any charged language that might come across as offensive. Next, you want to describe and sort of put across your feelings. I am upset because, or I am starting to get upset because, I am feeling angry because. Next, you want to establish the need. So my need for some space is not being understood or respected. So you're connecting the feeling to a human need. So I feel upset because you not doing the dishes makes me feel like I'm not respected by you because you don't listen. Or not you don't listen, that you haven't listened to my request, even though I've asked you more than once. And finally, the request: please can you give me some time to think? Please can you give me some space? I'm very upset by what was just said. Remember, we all have a right to set our personal boundaries. The emphasis is on personal. What may be okay or reasonable for one person may not be for ourselves, and that is totally okay. Okay, so we're going to go through a little example together now using the previous slide as a sort of template. You have made plans to attend your best friend's birthday party. Your boss asks you to stay over time and finish a job. You usually accept these last minute requests as you want to be on good terms with your boss, but tonight you really have to go. How would you respond to your boss? I'm going to give you 10 or so seconds to have a think about that. Remember the 4 points that I mentioned in the previous slide. So observation, feeling, need, and request. All right, so lucky you, I have an example here of a response. I understand that you want me to finish the job. However, I have already made arrangements for tonight and I really need to be somewhere else. I know how important this job is to you and I can prioritize it tomorrow as soon as I get in. We've all heard the saying that first impressions count. Now, you've already heard me talk a little bit about body language, but first impressions are made when a person meets another person for the first time and creates a mental image of them. This could take just a few seconds for someone to evaluate who you are and form an opinion of you based on many factors: hairstyle, eye contact, smile, how we look, body language, mannerisms, etc. Assertive communication is not just about the things we say, as our body language also communicates how we feel. We may be saying no, but our body language and tone of voice is saying that we can eventually be persuaded to change our mind. Let's look at how we can appear confident and assertive using our body language, even when we do not always feel like it. Here are some key points for assertive body language. Remember to breathe. Breathing through your nose is better than breathing through your mouth as well. Take your time to respond, not instantly interrupting, not instantly agreeing or disagreeing, not interrupting, giving yourself enough time to think. Relax your shoulders, so trying to bring them down away from your ears. Relaxing your jaw and facial muscles. Are your ears tensed up? Are your eyebrows raised all the time? Try not to fidget excessively because that's an anxiety trigger. Stand or sit tall and make eye contact. Speak loudly enough for people to hear. We call this projecting your voice. Hands open, friendly, and appropriate gestures. There have been studies that shown that your posture has a direct influence on how you feel about yourself. And so what I like to tell people is stand up straight, have your shoulders, consciously think about your shoulders being away from your ears. So even holding them down, pull your shoulders slightly back. So I do this by imagining that I'm pulling my elbows back. With your hands, imagine that there's lasers coming out of the hands like this, and then you want your lasers. So let's say you're holding two sticks, as it were, or lasers or logs or whatever, and you want the lasers to never touch. So your hands are like this by your side, as it were, or like this, whatever. And then finally, have your feet slightly wider than shoulder width. Your posture and how you speak and your tone of your voice can influence how you feel and make it easier or harder to say certain things. Let's say you have a difficult phone call to make. Try standing up instead of sitting or walking around, as it can help you sound and even feel more confident. Be aware of your posture. Are you trying to make yourself smaller to avoid being seen? If this is a trend here. It may sound silly or embarrassing, but try to practice some of the assertive body language at home first. Using a mirror could be helpful. Let's go through a brief scenario. A few weeks ago, you loaned your friend 70 quid, and now you really need the money back to pay a bill, cost of living and everything. So you have to ask for it back. Being assertive and thinking about your body language, how would you broach the subject, tone your voice, etc.? So I want you to have a think about it and think about how you could do this with assertive language. And what I want you to do when you've done that is have a think about, how does it feel to use this more assertive language? How do you think that you would feel if you were on the receiving end of that language? Would it feel wrong? Does it feel right? Do you feel okay? Is it uncomfortable? And remember that assertive communication styles, it's about setting what your personal boundaries are and being able to compromise to meet the needs of the other person too. What we have spoken about today may seem difficult if you are struggling with your self-confidence. If you experience, and I can imagine that a number of these things I've been saying, you go, good luck, kind of thing. Like, I'm unsavable, as it were. But the fact of the matter is, we are all savable. It just takes practice. If you experience some difficult situations, becoming more assertive can seem daunting. You may even try some techniques after our workshop. I hope you will, and but then eventually find that you slip back into your normal ways of communicating. So you try our things for a week, and then just life happens. You forget about it. Understandable. However, a way around this is self-affirmations. Self-affirmations are positive statements that can help you challenge your inner critic and negative thoughts that you might have about yourself. When you repeat them often and believe in them, they can support you to make positive changes to both your thoughts and behaviors. You can like self-affirmations to exercises. The more you do, the stronger you physically become, and this is also true of the mind. I don't care if you get a post-it note and you stick on your fridge and you just write to yourself, I'm awesome. That will work. That will work. I have a little note on my laptop. It's one of my sticky notes. It has my to-do list, but at the top it just says, you are awesome. That's it. I don't have grand thoughts about myself, but I like to say, hey, you're awesome, Leo. You keep going, kind of thing. Little motivation. So we have some here. I am brave. I am good enough. Obstacles don't have to stop you. You can go around it, go through it, work around it, wherever, and all these sort of things. I can't read that last one, but the person who thinks they can do and the person that they can't do are both right. And having that positive. Think about the things that maybe you did in the past that you're proud of yourself in, even if they're small. So reading positive affirmations can be really useful. You can even mix it in with some mindfulness. There will be some mindfulness videos on our YouTube page. I'm not going to go through them today though, but check out the rest of the rest of the videos on this page in general. To be honest, there's a lot of good stuff here. So yeah, all of this is related to thingy, but I'm going to read out some your rights, as it were. So I will do this in another video as a meditation, but just to read some of the rights here that you have. I have the right to be treated with respect as an intelligent, capable, and equal human being. I have the right to express my feelings. I have the right to make mistakes. I have the right to ask for what I want. I have the right to say I do not understand. I have the right to say yes or no for myself. I have the right to express my opinions. I have the right to change my mind. I have the right to decline responsibility for other people's problems. I have the right to deal with others without being dependent on them for approval. I have the right to be happy. So just to sort of like round off things, if you're struggling, it can be so helpful to talk about it. Sometimes we might want to bottle it all in and not burden people, and maybe that's why you're watching this video. But the thing is, a lot of people will be feeling the exact same as you. It can be really helpful to hear that someone else has experienced something similar. I call all this unpacking your backpack. So I mentioned earlier that we all carry around these backpacks and our stresses and our emotions go in this backpack and it can feel really heavy. Sometimes unpacking it in front of a friend or a family member or someone from Sudden Uplift, which I'll get into in a sec, can be really helpful because when you take these things out of your backpack, so shame related to something that happened at school or guilt related to something that happened at school 20 years ago or 10 years ago or even a few months ago or even yesterday, the stresses of work, the stresses of being a carer, the stresses of being a partner for someone who's maybe not treating you right. And then you show someone these stresses and these emotions that are in your backpack, and maybe they can say, that doesn't need to go back in your backpack. You should forget about that happened at school. No one cares about that anymore. Or it could be, I have that in my backpack too. This is what I do to try and combat it, and that will help. Maybe someone sees what's in your backpack and goes, I can help you with that. Sorry, I can help you with that. This is what I did. Or I can help you with that. Maybe I could help you with some of the caring responsibilities. And all these things just make your backpack a little bit lighter. We are also here at Sutton Uplift. If you scan the QR code, you can go straight to our referral form. You can get service through our wellbeing service, which you work with a member of my team, or you can work with our general IAPT services. IAPT standing for Improving Access to Psychological Treatment. So this would especially be things like cognitive behavioral therapy and counseling. We also ask you to it'd be great if you could come to the service user forum. No matter how small or large, we want to hear your thoughts, and we will give you £10 for just 1 hour of your time. This is called the Help Us to Help You program, and all you have to do is scan the QR code. It will send you through to an email address. It will open up an email. You can send in saying, hey, I'd like to attend. They are on the first Tuesday of each month from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. on Teams. You do not have to attend every week, and you don't have to be there for the full hour. You would just sign up, and yeah, you'll see. But it's a great opportunity to give us feedback on how we're doing, because we want to improve as a service. We're very, very passionate about that. And so these sort of things, getting feedback from you, the user of our service, is really important so that we can just refine what we do and make our service the best it can possibly be. So finally, just to say thanks for watching this video. I hope that you've taken something from it. If I was you in your situation, I would write down 2 or 3 things that you are going to take away from this workshop moving forward, and try them out today. Even if it's something small, even if it's the smallest thing possible, like just disagreeing with someone at work about something very minor, and about doing it in an assertive way. Maybe think about a conversation you want to. Maybe it's doing the gratitude journal just once. But any of these sort of things, just try a couple out. Maybe write down some positive affirmations. But I would write down a couple of things that you're going to take from this talk and move forward. But I have really enjoyed doing this talk, and I look forward to seeing you in one of our other videos on our YouTube channel.